Today, I will tell you the story of the most mysterious and terrifying character in Tolkien's universe, the story of the Witch-king of Angmar. You'll learn things that books and movies usually keep silent about. Watch this video to the end and discover all his dark secrets. The Knight of Angmar, a name that inspires fear and reverence. Yet the average reader or viewer knows very little about him. Why was this servant of Sauron so special? What powers did he possess? And why was it Merry who became the reason for his downfall? The Witch-king of Angmar. This was the name he received after he founded his own kingdom in the northern lands of Middle-earth. Unfortunately, we do not know his real name, as Tolkien never mentioned it in his books or records. However, it is most likely that he was one of the Númenóreans, descendants of the men of Edain, who migrated to the island of Númenor in the Second Age and became a powerful people. The Númenóreans were once allies of the elves and enemies of Sauron, but over time they became proud, greedy, and obsessed with the desire for immortality. You can learn more about their history in the video about Númenor, link provided somewhere, so I won't repeat it here. Eventually, among the surviving Númenóreans in Middle-earth, there were those who chose to follow Sauron. They became known as the Black Númenóreans. Perhaps the Witch-king was one of these traitors. In any case, what we do know is that he received from Sauron one of the 9 rings of power, created by the elves of Eregion. These rings granted their bearers great power and long life, but at a terrible price. They turned them into slaves of Sauron's one ring. Under their influence, men gradually faded, lost their physical form, and became wraiths, the Nazgûl. The Witch-king was the greatest and most powerful of them all. He became Sauron's right hand. Like the other Nazgûl, his ring granted him immense power, wealth, fame, and enhanced his strength and abilities. Moreover, the ring allowed him to conceal his physical form and gave him sight into the secrets of the unseen world. Thanks to the ring, the Witch-king, like the other Nazgûl, no longer aged and could not die a natural death. However, his existence was bleak and empty. The Nazgûl lived in endless torment until the very world around them became a source of suffering and despair. In the end, even this once powerful lord was entirely consumed by darkness. He lost his will, becoming a slave to the ring and to Sauron. The greatest weapon of the Nazgûl was terror itself. Their mere presence spread fear. At night, that fear turned into unbearable horror. They could not see well during the day, but at night their vision became sharpened. Moreover, while existing in the spirit world, they could see not only intangible beings, but also those who existed in both worlds at once. The Witch-king saw Frodo clearly when he put on the ring and entered the spirit world. Any ordinary weapon would shatter upon striking him. He also possessed the Black Breath, a deadly aura that destroyed all life. Additionally, the Witch-king was a master of necromancy, a dark art taught to him by Sauron himself. Though he was completely invisible, he still retained a physical presence. Along with the other Nazgûl, he wore a black cloak to give himself some semblance of a visible form. What made him stand out even more was the steel crown he wore upon his head, beneath which his dead fiery eyes burned ominously. In the Witch-king's arsenal, along with his sorcery, were a massive black mace, a sword, and the legendary Morgul blade, a weapon that left its victim a fate far worse than death. The Nazgûl first appeared in Middle-earth in the year 2251 of the Second Age. They helped Sauron wage war against the Free Peoples, but after Sauron was defeated, lost the One Ring, and fled to the east, the Nazgûl vanished from sight along with him. However, in the year 1300 of the Third Age, the Witch-king returned to Middle-earth and founded his sinister kingdom of Angmar in the northern regions beyond the Misty Mountains. His capital became the dark and terrifying city of Carn Dûm. He had one goal, the complete destruction of Arnor, the kingdom of the Dunedain, descendants of the mighty Númenóreans. Unlike Gondor, which remained powerful, Arnor had been weakened by internal strife and was eventually divided into 3 smaller kingdoms, Arthedain, Cardolan, and Rudor. The Witch-king gathered orcs, trolls, evil men, and other vile creatures under his banners. A bloody war against Arnor began, a war that would last almost 6 centuries. Rudor was the first to fall, Its local rulers betrayed their own people and sided with Angmar. Next, the Witch King nearly destroyed Cardolan, but his advance was halted by the elves of Lindon, led by Elrond himself. However, it wasn't long before Cardolan was further devastated by a terrible plague, rumored to have been brought upon them by the Witch King himself. The last ruler of Cardolan died, and over the ancient barrows of the fallen, the forces of Angmar placed wights, ghostly guardians who haunted those sacred tombs. The northern peoples trembled before the Witch King. It was even said that he could control the weather itself, summoning either deadly frost or sudden thaw, disrupting the plans of his enemies. Arthedain remained the last bastion of resistance, but even its fate was sealed. In the year 1974 of the Third Age, the Witch King delivered a devastating blow. Fornost, the capital of Arthedain, fell. The last king of Arthedain, Arvedui, tried to escape but perished at sea. Thus the northern kingdom of the Dunedain ceased to exist, but the triumph of the Witch King was short-lived. That same year, long-awaited allies arrived from the south, a fleet from Gondor, led by Prince Éowyn, and an army of elves commanded by Círdan, the shipwright, and the legendary Glorfindel. In the Battle of Fornost, the forces of Angmar were finally defeated. Men and elves fled before the Witch King in terror. Swords shattered like glass, wills crumbled, and hearts filled with dread. But even the Witch King of Angmar had an enemy whose very name struck fear into his heart. It was Glorfindel, the legendary elven lord, hero of the ancient days, and slayer of a Balrog during the fall of Gondolin. Once slain in battle, he had returned to Middle-earth from the very halls of Mandos, the realm of the dead. He shone with the pure light of Valinor, and his power extended into both worlds, the seen and the unseen. In the spirit world, his presence was even more terrifying. The mere sight of him was enough to force the Witch King to retreat rather than face him in battle. At that moment, Glorfindel gave Prince Éowyn, the future king of Gondor, a cryptic and prophetic warning. Do not pursue him. His doom is not yet come, and he will not fall by the hand of man. Thus ended the dark kingdom of Angmar in the northern lands of Middle-earth. After his defeat, the Witch King fled eastward, hiding in the shadows, awaiting Sauron's command. In the year 2000 of the Third Age, the Witch King revealed himself once again. He led a siege against Minas Ithil, Gondor's moon tower, where one of the ancient Palantiri was kept. After 2 years of relentless siege, the Nazgûl, together with orcs and the armies of Mordor, stormed the city. Rumors spoke of treachery, that the gates of the fortress had been opened from within. Thus, Minas Ithil fell and became Minas Morgul, the Tower of Black Sorcery. The city became a source of darkness and death. Dark magic flowed from its walls, poisoning the very land around it. The Witch King became the ruler of Minas Morgul and began preparing for a new war. He harbored a special hatred for the king of Gondor, Éowyn. Eventually, he challenged him to a duel. Éowyn, despite the warnings of the wise, accepted the challenge and rode to face him, but was never seen again. Thus ended the line of the kings of Gondor, and the rule of the stewards began. Centuries passed. In 2941 of the Third Age, Sauron returned to Mordor and began gathering darkness under his banner. The Nazgûl once again became his deadliest weapons. After several decades, Sauron learned about the Shire and Bilbo Baggins, the possessor of the One Ring. The information, extracted through torture, marked the beginning of the hunt for the ring. Once again, the Witch King led the Ringwraiths. By that time, the rings of the Nazgûl were entirely under Sauron's control. He feared no betrayal from them. They were but his shadows. In 3018 of the Third Age, the Witch King and his riders began their relentless hunt for Frodo Baggins. But the small hobbits managed to slip through their grasp time after time. During the pursuit, the Nazgûl confronted Gandalf at the ancient tower of Amansul. All through the night, a terrible battle raged. Thunder, lightning, and bursts of flame filled the sky as the White Wizard fought against the powers of darkness. Only at dawn did Gandalf manage to escape the deadly trap, but the hunt continued. The Nazgûl caught up with Frodo as he tried to flee. In desperation, the hobbit struck the Witch King with his sword, but ordinary steel was useless against him. Frodo's blade crumbled to dust. Without realizing it, Frodo was closer to death than ever before. For the sword he carried was no ordinary weapon. It was one of the enchanted blades of Arnor, the ancient northern kingdom. The hobbits had found these swords in the Barrow Downs of Cardolan, and their blades were inscribed with runes specifically designed to combat dark magic and curses. Nevertheless, the Witch-king of Angmar managed to wound Frodo with the Morgul blade, a dreadful weapon whose fragment remained in the victim's body, slowly turning them into a wraith. But the hobbits were saved by Aragorn, who drove the Nazgûl away with the flames of torches. As the company journeyed toward Rivendell, Sauron sent Glorfindel himself to meet them, the elven lord whose power had driven the Nazgûl to flight many times before. The final confrontation happened at the ford of the Bruinen River. The Witch King and his wraiths attempted to cross the river and seize Frodo. But with the help of Elrond and Gandalf, the waters of Bruinen rose in a mighty wave, sweeping away the Nazgûl and their black horses. Glorfindel and Aragorn finished the battle, forcing them back into the flood with fire and light. Only the Witch King's own steed survived. On it, he fled, but not for long. The next appearance of the Witch King was truly epic. On March 10th of the Third Age, the gates of Minas Morgul opened. From them rode the Witch King, leading Sauron's vast army. Behind him marched orcs, trolls, the Haradrim of the south, and wild Easterlings. The Witch King rode a black horse, his invisible head crowned with a crown of steel. Before the campaign, Sauron had used dark magic to amplify his general's power many times over. His forces easily captured Osgiliath and advanced toward Minas Tirith, the capital of Gondor. During the siege, the Nazgûl flew over the city, spreading terror among its defenders. But the Witch King himself remained on the ground, preparing to deliver the final blow. To break the gates of the city, the forces of darkness brought forth a monstrous battering ram, Grond. Shaped like the head of a wolf, it inherited its name from the Hammer of Morgoth, the ancient Dark Lord. The Witch King cast 3 terrible spells upon Grond, and the unbreakable gates of Minas Tirith fell. He rode into the city on his black horse, raising his flaming sword above his head. And there, waiting for him, stood Mithrandir, Gandalf the White. 2 of the greatest warriors of their age stood face to face. The Witch King hesitated, uncertainty flickering even within his dark soul. But then, as if summoned by fate, the horn of Rohan sounded across the battlefield. The great battle of the Pelennor Fields had begun. The Witch King left the city, mounted his fell beast, and flew to meet his next victim. That victim was Theoden, king of Rohan. His horse, terrified of the Nazgûl's monstrous mount, reared and collapsed, crushing its master beneath it. Then Éowyn stood between the Witch King and the dying Theoden. She slew the fell beast, but the Witch King easily shattered her shield and broke her arm. At that moment, the hobbit Merry intervened. He drove one of the enchanted blades of Arnor into the Witch King's knee. The magic of the sword broke the sorceress' protection around his body. And then, gathering her remaining strength, Éowyn struck a fatal blow into the space between the crown and the cloak. There was an inhuman scream. The Witch King's armor and robes collapsed to the ground, empty. Thus fell the Lord of the Nazgûl. And the words of the ancient prophecy came true. His death came not by the hand of a man, but by the hand of a woman and a hobbit. The fall of the Witch King marked the turning point of the battle. His army wavered, and soon Aragorn's main forces arrived with the fleet of the Black Ships. Sauron had lost his most powerful general, and his greatest weapon, fear. The War of the Ring was entering its final phase. Thus ended the story of Sauron's most feared servant. The Witch-king of Angmar did not fall in a great duel against a mighty warrior, but at the hands of those he considered insignificant, a frail woman and a small hobbit. And that is the greatest irony of Middle-earth. No matter how powerful evil may seem, it always underestimates the power of courage, friendship, and honor. The very things that darkness lacks become its greatest weakness. And though the name of the Witch King will forever be remembered in history as a symbol of terror, his fall serves as an eternal reminder. Even the greatest horror can be defeated if there is light in the heart.